So today we're going to talk about milling lumber. Taking rough sawn or rough cut lumber that you would buy from a sawmill that's been kiln dried and milling it before you're able to use it for your furniture or projects or whatever you may be using it for. In this case, we're going to talk about getting a hook or a curve out of a board that's slightly warped. First, let's talk about some lumber basics. This is called the face of the board. This is called the edge of the board. And then, of course, we have the end of the board. All right. So this is some 12-quarter rough cut or rough sawn walnut that's been kiln dried. And if you'll notice, this board right here has a little bit of a hook in it to the left. And we want to be able to get this board straight so we can use it in our furniture building or project building. Now this board right here to the left also had a really bad hook in it. And you can see now it's a pretty straight board, if I can get this camera to focus. So to do it, there's several different techniques involved. And there's several different ways to do it. There's just not one way that you can accomplish this task. One way would be able to take just a regular hand plane and work the lumber and get the hook out of the board. Now this way is a lot of labor involved and a lot of exercise and something that I can't do, partially because I don't have any planes. So we're going to take the easy way and use some machinery to do it, and we'll talk about what machinery we're going to use and how we're going to accomplish the task of getting this lumber ready for your projects. All right, so the first piece of machinery that we're going to use is a joiner. The joiner is going to allow us to get one face of the walnut flat. We'll take that hooked end face down on the joiner and run it across the joiner as many times as it takes to get that board flat. We need to get that board flat because we have to have one face flat before we can throw it on the planer. Now this is an 8-inch joiner. It's equipped with a spiral cutter head, which are real nice. It allows us to get a nice clean finish on the board. If you don't have a joiner with a spiral cutter head and you've got conventional straight knives, if you want an upgrade, it'd be a really good upgrade to invest in. Spiral cutter heads are a smoother cut, they're quieter, and ultimately the biggest reason and benefit of a spiral cutter head over a straight knife, high-speed steel cutter head is the fact that there's no setup involved. The knife is, or the cutter head's indexed, and you don't have to do any type of setup once you switch these knives out. Once you turn these knives 90 degrees, you get a nice clean cutting surface, nice fresh clean cutting surface, and there's no indexing. Unlike setting up high-speed steel knives on a conventional cutter head where you've got to zero it out, take yourself a straight edge and a dial indicator, and it's a very tedious process. Highly, highly recommend spiral cutter heads. All right, and the next piece of equipment we need is a planer. This is a 20-inch planer set up with a carbide tip spiral cutter head along with a Wixie measurement indicator. Now, the Wixie measurement indicator is really nice because you can simply, by turning the wheel, you can see where the head of the knife is and what you're going to cut. So like right here, if I dial this into, this is hard to do on the camera, but right there, whoops, I just had it. There we go, 2 inches exactly. So if I put a board through this planer, the way it's set, it'll mill it down to 2 inches exactly. Now we still have to take 16th or 1/8 inch cuts, but to do it, it makes it a lot easier instead of the old-fashioned way of taking a set of calipers, measuring the board, setting the planer, running it through, remeasuring the board, setting the planer. It's really a much faster way to do it. Once again, if you have a planer, whether it's a benchtop style, one of the DeWalt DW735s, they have spiral, or they have dial, or the measurement indicators for that. It's well worth the cost, and they're not that expensive. Highly recommend. Okay, so what the planer does, obviously, is once we have the flat face of the board, we could run the opposite face through the planer, and now we've flattened that face out, and we've got a flattened board. So, without further ado, let's get to milling some lumber.